this is my opinion. Like, looking at this graphic, I'm just like, it's very, very telling to tell me that, you know, there's only one player who reached 27,000 points in less than 800 games, and that's a player who did this pre NBA ABA merger, that being obviously the man with the fewest games played. Kevin Durant recently scored 27,000 points, and when you consider the injuries and all the team hopping that he's done, the fact that it's taken him less than 1,000 games to reach this feat makes him one of the greatest scorers of all time. And the thing about it is, it's probably never going to get talked about because one thing that everyone has to say about Kevin Durant is that he just doesn't have certain intangibles. He's just not a leader. And I would have to say you're correct. Maybe you're correct on this fact that KD just isn't a leader or whatever. But he's been doing his thing, trying to lead the Phoenix Suns to, I don't know, the record right now is absolutely abysmal. I mean, like, the team is not winning. And I decided to make this video just to basically highlight his scoring prowess because, I mean, like, he is a great scorer. And I mean, like, when you compare that, his scoring to Kareem, to Jordan, to Wilt, I mean, these guys are, in a class of their own. I mean, like, he's been able to do this at a pretty consistent pace. So 25 more games than Kareem, and then you compare that to Jordan, who has pretty much done this in more than 100 fewer games, and then when you compare that to Wilt, a little bit more than 200 fewer games, he was able to score 27,000 points. Originally, I was going to make this video and say that this is my case for why Wilt Chamberlain is the greatest player of all time. I mean, just look at how many games it took him to score 27,000 points. Say what you want about the quality of the league back in the 1960s and early 70s. Say what you want about the quality of the NBA then versus the quality of the NBA now. When you consider the fact that back when Wilt played, load management was not a thing. Like, it literally was not a thing. Not to mention, people played the full length of the season majority of the time. That's just based on the players who always would continuously log minutes. Over the years, less and less players would log that many minutes for that many games throughout the season. I mean, like, when you look at the list of players in the NBA today that play consistent minutes, and when I say consistent minutes, I don't mean the mockery that they did with Mikal Bridges, where he ended up playing every game but was only logged like less than a minute. Like, did you know that it's considered logging a full minute of play, whether or not you actually play a full minute, as long as you're checked in, and you can get checked out of the game in the next 10 seconds and you've played for an entire minute? That's just how it works in the NBA. All this buffoonery somehow. But I digress, because at the end of the day, yes, minutes played, all these things factor into certain things, but to me, to be honest with you, like, Kevin Durant, and remember, it's remarkable that Kevin Durant, and it's funny, Kevin Durant and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, these two players, when you look at the amount of points that they scored, neither of these two players have done so while ever having a game where they recorded more than 60 plus points. Everyone says that all time, like, it's like a unwritten rule or unwritten criteria to be an all-time great. You have to at least score 55 or more, and if you don't, then you're just not that good at scoring the basketball or whatever. Or you have to have a streak of consistently scoring 30, or you have to have a streak of consistently scoring this many points. It's just laughable, It's absolutely laughable. They make stats for players who have consistently scored 40 points a game over the course of how many games in a season. Wilt would consistently score, did you guys know that for the first 6 years of Wilt Chamberlain's career, he consistently scored 44 points a game? For 6 seasons. 6 seasons. For 6 seasons, he consistently scored 44 points per game. That hasn't been done by any other player in NBA history since. And he won the scoring title 7 years straight, and it's coincidental. The only player to have more scoring titles than him is also the second. Has also scored the second. Sorry, not the second most. Who's also scored the who also has the second fewest games to score 27,000 points, that being Michael Jordan. And when you look at the number of players who have scoring titles and multiple time scoring title winners, Kevin Durant, I believe, is one of those guys who has multiple scoring titles, along with Allen Iverson. Perhaps even Russell Westbrook, I think, has more than one. And, it's pretty crazy when you think about the players that have scoring titles. I don't know who's going to, in my opinion, if I were to, just based off of early stats right now, the first couple of games have been played, if I were to pick somebody to win the scoring title this season, my money is on Luka Doncic because he's just been going absolutely nuts. I don't think there's a single game that he has played this season where he scored less than 25 points. And, I'm saying consistent. And that's with consistent scoring and consistent minutes played there as well. The only way I see him not winning it this year is if he doesn't play more than 65 games. And that's pretty much so far my only gripe, is that most players that are winning the scoring titles, they're usually at least playing that many games, and they're reaching a certain threshold of points scored per game that they play. So whether it's somewhere between more than 21, less than 31, less than 35 on a consistent basis, like when you average the mean, median, range, whatever, I'm not trying to pull out the whole mathematician thing on y'all, but to me, this statistic right here is just very telling, that the players that score 27,000 points in the fewest amount of games played, there's one notable player missing within this top 4 graphic, that being a Mr. Ramon James. And yes, I'm going to go there. How does this affect LeBron's legacy? Because it ultimately affects his legacy. How is he not on this list if he is so good and been so good for such a consistent amount of time? Because this is one of those longevity stats. And, I just have to keep things back on track here. Kevin Durant scoring this many points, scoring 27,000 points in less than 1,000 games. I mean, he's literally 10 games away from being 1,000. I'm pretty sure he's out of the running for it being impressive beyond that mark. And then the fact that the other 3 players that are on this list are 3 players that a lot of people, I would have to say, consider the GOAT of the sport in one aspect or another, be it winning, be it personal accomplishments, being team accomplishments, be it a combination of both. Every player above Kevin Durant in terms of fewest games to score 27,000 points are considered the GOATs of the sport, or at least have had that moniker bestowed upon them at some point in their respective careers, I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was a part of the all-time NBA top 30-something list, then the top 50, and then, of course, the top 75. I think it's very funny. Like, I don't want to make any early predictions here, but when the top 100 list of all-time basketball players comes out, who will not be on that list, we really don't know. Maybe the players who didn't get included will be finally included on that list, and I'm going to have to make a video addressing the top 75 list at some point, because I just think that some of the players that are on there are absolutely, terrible. Not terrible, but come on, you know what I mean. There are some players that should be on that list that aren't. There are some players that are on that list that have no business being there, and, that just goes without saying. And, tell me what you guys think in the comments. When it comes to Kevin Durant and his scoring ability, where do you rank him all time as a scorer? Where do you rank him all time as a player? Because, to me, this is impressive. You can't take that away from Kevin Durant. That this is downright impressive. Peace, y'all.